Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from all over the world. We are very happy to have you today with us here in the UIA Architecture and Children Work Program special webinar on World Children's Day. We have a number of 7 panelists. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panelists today. And to start, we are going to welcome Ms. Virginia Murello Herrera, the Executive President of Defensa de Ninas and Ninos or Ninos International from Costa Rica, and she will be giving us her presentation about children and adolescents and their contribution to society from Costa Rica. Ms. Virginia, welcome. You have 30 minutes to give us your presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Just a second. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to talk about children and adolescents and their contribution to society from, of course, the child rights approach, and taking in consideration that today is the 32nd celebration of the anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. I would like to highlight and use the convention to show and to explain a little bit the approach we are focusing and we are using to promote social actors in practice. I'm going to divide the presentation in 3 parts. One will be, would like to highlight some key elements or premises of the Convention on the Rights of the Child that is strengthening and reinforce the condition of social actor more than only a subject of rights. Then I will talk a little bit about the condition needed and barriers. This is a result of an experience we've been having since several years, but was ended in 2019 and 20 with a process of intergenerational process, and then some pending agenda that we need to face. First of all, I would like to, with these powerful messages from children and young people and adolescents and young people in the region, that they've been saying to all of us that nothing about us without us. That doesn't mean that we cannot do things, but we have to now incorporate them in our discussions, in our dialogues, in our process projects and everything. Which is, this is how, for example, in Latin America and in Costa Rica, of course, we are trying to integrate and to work more in a parallel in a way. The first elements I would like to mention is that the Convention, of course, of the Rights of the Child was adopted 32 years ago. And what we can see is that the convention has impacted the legal and the political frameworks and has, of course, established the obligations to the states parties at global level. But the process of implementation has been not equal, and we can see like 2 scenarios. One, before COVID, we saw that there were a complex situation for the rights of the child, but we saw some improvement. But now after COVID and now, we see that there are more complex issues affecting children's rights, but we don't see improvement. We see things that are backing forward, and we're quite concerned about that, at least in Latin America. But what we see in this complex context that we are working in is that we see more visibility and participation of children and more exigibility of them to be part of the process. And they are demanding to be there they are trying to, they are requesting to participate in the decision making and also in the change of the situations. And a good example is how we see now with the climate change agenda, that we see several young people taking the lead. For example, Nakate from Uganda, we see as the Artemisa Barbosa from Brazil, we see Francisco Javier Vera from Colombia, we see, of course, Greta Thunberg from Sweden, but we see many others that are invisible, for example, for the media, but they're doing many things. And also, for example, in Latin America, one important movement of students that create impressive mobilization in Chile was the movement of students in Chile that provoke other mobilization inside of the country with the support of the different stakeholders. The convention is not written in stone. It's a live document, which is very important because the contexts are changing. So you can use, despite of those changes, you can still use in the convention. And what is important also is that you can adequate also to, of course, not avoiding the correct interpretation for the implementation of the CRC, but it is an alive tool. So, and this, we can see it also when we work with the child participation articles, that the convention, for example, it has one of the main principles of the convention is the right to be heard. And the convention itself doesn't talk about participation only in Article 31, but has some operational articles that we call the participation rights. And it has a big framework of possibilities for involving children and creating capacities and conditions of children for them to become actors, social actors, and implement their citizenship. The convention asked the states to recognize their the subject of rights, but the convention, when we implement and we will mobilize the articles of participation, we create another scenario, and we recognize the children as a person of rights, but also as a social actors, which is very important for what I'm going to mention later. I'm going to, in the second part, I'm going to use this infogram that is the result of this intergenerational dialogue that I mentioned. That has been done with more in Latin America, but also has been some other groups of Europe, and in particular from Spain, that participate in analyzing this frame of articles of participation and the challenge for implementation. And this is like the result of that discussion. And we identified like three main blocks that needed to be discussed and are also part of a pending agenda that we have. So the first one will be the children and adolescent producers of a sense of humanity. And then will be some obstacles that are facing the children and adolescents for them to really implement their citizenship and their or being a social actor, or even to be a person with rights. And then the diversity of social groups and heterogeneity is also one of the barriers that they are facing. So we're going to analyze or see a little bit, taking the time I have, one of them. The first one is the children, adolescent producers of a human sense of humanity. For implementing their citizenship or even to be a social actor, the first step is that it needs recognition. We know the convention, when the States Party adopt and sign the convention, the children has the legal recognition, and maybe they can be included in the legal frame or in the policies. But that in the practice, maybe this another recognition that is needed, which is also the social recognition in the family, in the communities, in schools, and in society. And this is where we see difficulties, and children also are saying that they are not they are having problems of even recognize. And when we see the difference of a social class, for example, or children that are socially excluded in society, and they're not recognized as a citizenship, because they can be recognized as a minor, as a less as someone without the possibility of access to rights or access to services, or having the protections of the government. And the subject of rights, as I said, is something that is already adopted as a legal perspective, but not implies the implementation of the citizenship of the social actor. Being a social actor implies being part of, taking part of, being recognized, but also in Article 12, for example, which is from the Committee of the Rights of the Child, they said that Article 12 is the core of the child participation rights, and is the one who provokes and provides the capacity for other rights to be implemented. A social actor needs to be recognized to be able to take part of the decision making in societies, and needs to be taken in serious. And one of the problems children are saying that they have difficulties isn't that it's being taken in serious, and there has been a lot of consultation and discussion with them, but those consultation and those words that children are saying and are taken for the decision making of policy makers of legal or programs, for example. The agency of child is very important because it's the way of children themselves taking the decision despite of the context or the structures. And this is something that we see a lot, for example, in migration contexts, when the children decide despite of the context where they're going to move. They know that there will be some risk, they know there will be some challenges, but they still decide to go because they're looking for a better conditions of life. And the other, sorry. Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah. The other elements are the obstacles that they're facing, for example. So we need that first part, which is the recognitions of rights. And the problem is that we live in a society which is based on built on powered relation, and from an adultism relationship where the adult is the one who has the word. The Committee on the Rights of the Child, for example, said to Costa Rica that Costa Rica is a paternalist country that is limiting the autonomy and the possibility of children to exercise their full citizenship. We see some perceptions that do not allow to recognize the children as a person, because participation and even the right create tension from in this relation of powers. We have seen also dependency from children that are seen as a lack of capacity, but also we have seen dependency, a tremendous dependency under COVID, where children were not consulted for to be in their house. They have closed the parks, they have closed the schools, they have closed any possibility of for them to mobilize, and this relation of not taking them in consideration and the adults taking decision because of the best interest of the child has created also a dependency that invisible the children as a person with rights. We have seen also that in the obstacle in Article 12 implies that the children has to be has the right to be heard in administrative and procedures and judicial procedures. And in the practice, we have seen those two arenas are one of the most challenges the children has, because when the state has to make administrative or judicial procedures, they're not taking the voice of children. And this is why the third optional protocol that has come in has been adopted under the Convention of the Rights of the Child in 2011, and has bring an opportunity for the children to strengthen their recognition and their capacity of accessing to justice in a different way. The other rights of participation also are given in attention, because if Article 12 is not really put in place and implemented in accordance to what it should be, the other articles of rights of participation also are quite difficult to be implemented. For example, the right to, with this relation of power, for example, the right of to express their opinion, or the right to organize themselves in a, it has also some limitation, or the right to conscience of religion, or the rights of accessing to adequate information. We have had, for example, a terrible example these days in Costa Rica, that through an evaluation test at national level under the Minister of Education guidance, and they have violated all the rights of participation and all the rights of children, right? Because they have not provided adequate information to children. They have request privacy and information that the children were not the ones responsible to respond to that. There were information very private related to the conditions of living, the housing conditions, information that under the law of protection is prohibited to us, to children, and to provide that responsibility to children, and the ones who has to respond to that information are the families, but not the children. And this is one of the violations that they have committed, but there were others. For example, the stress they have put the children under that situation for an evaluation that they want. Normally the evaluation is to improve the learning process, but they have the result was contradictory. And more than 77,000 children were affected to that adult decision without taking any consideration of the best interest of the child and the hearing of the child. They did not consult the child before and did not prove. So this tension constantly in the implementation part is creating problems and is creating constantly violations. And the other one, which is very important, is related also to the context. We have seen that, first of all, children and adolescents is not an homogeneous group. The context and the conditions where they're living affect the exercise of the rights. And there is, so participation is not the same depending on your conditions, so where you live in. And there is a lot of breach that are creating, and there is a gap and a breach of condition that is creating a lot of lack of opportunities, for example, to access the rights or to access to service, to access to the rights of participation. But we have seen under the COVID also, we have seen the difficulties for some of group under excluded, with more in the rural areas or in the urban marginalized areas, difficulties to access to education because of the connectivity, but also because of the poverty condition, or the distance of schooling infrastructure, or the distance to the places where they could be connected to access to education. So in Costa Rica, for example, the half of the schooling population has been excluded to to access to education. And today we have a tremendous challenge that that have a population have, for example, 4 years of mad apprenticeship of education, and it's a tremendous bridge between ones and others. So this diversity of groups is very important to take in consideration when we promote child participation, and when we promote the spaces for children that are can access to their citizenship or their participation as a social actor. But also it's in that context, it's also very important, and the convention promotes the multidisciplinary approach and the intersectorial approach, taking in consideration the need of having taking in consideration the diversity of the groups, the gender inequality and discrimination that also is affecting also the access of participation and the non-recognition of children as social actors. The cultures where they also are involved is also being an issue of exclusion and discrimination. And there is, for example, in this context, in our region, in particular in Central America and in Costa Rica, the integration or the migration in our country. And this is also creating a sub-exclusion group, which is also under-recognized and is discriminated, and they have a more tremendous possibility of implementing their citizenship, for example, or they're even to be recognized as an actor. So they are discriminated first because they are they are minor. Secondly, because they are poor. Third, because they are migrant. And this is this situation provokes difficulties of accessing any right and any integration and participation. In the cities also children are not conceived or not integrated as a social actors, and depends of and this is also varied from any municipality to other, how the development of the child rights protection system is put in place. So there are some interesting commissions, for example, that has been developed that is starting to be good organized scenarios for children to take the lead and to try to be heard a little bit. The problem of these cities social participatory commissions for adolescents is that they are led by adults, and they are conditioned by the adults the possibility of them to participate. And the other thing is that there is also a tension between the political and legal frameworks, but also this tension is created more that because of the dynamic of short-term decision makings and the changes of decision to be implemented. For example, our administrations are governments, they implement decisions in 4 years, and the other comes and they change the decision makings. And even you have create some sustainable scenario, or you think it's sustainable scenario, it can be changed radically with another government. And this is very difficult also for child participation, protection and child participation process of participation, because they don't last and they are changing, and they are object of political and technical decision. We have a very pending agenda in this, which is some people are calling not a contract, a social contract, but a new social pact. Another because there has been a lot of pacts to children and a lot of commitments, wording commitments to children that we're, as I said, for example, in this logic of short-term decision, we have seen a lot of declaration, willingness or commitments, political commitments, but they're not reaching the goals. And the need of having something new and something different and with the children and not for the children is what it could be a new agenda, no? So first of all is that social and political weight is given to the word of children in this tension that I was mentioned before. Children and adolescents today are not the same way they were recognized 32 years before. And today they have to be recognized as a citizenship, but as a social actor and as someone with no discrimination. So it hasn't been, we have 1,400,000 children, and the rights and the participation has to be for the 1,400,000 children, not just for one, it has to be for all. The second one is that many of the commitments or legal and political commitment, they could be not binding, but they are ethically binding. So we need to, even this, and this is a game in the child rights arena, that the governments normally are accepting some obligation, or they are signing a lot of documentation relating to the protection of children's rights and even also related to participation. But the problem of legally binding for implementing this obligation are very important, that we also bring them as an ethical arena. The language is very important because in Spanish, for example, we fight a lot in Latin America about the use of some specific words that creates discrimination, and it's very important to come on to an harmonized language that really value and strengthen the participation and the children as a person with rights and a citizenship. Yes.
I'm really sorry. I just I'm just alerting you of the time, because
yes.
it's already been 30 minutes. I'm sorry, you're our prestigious panelist, but we should commit to the program. So please, in a minute or two.
Yes, don't worry. And this was the last. I mean, those elements, those 8 elements. What I was saying is that we need a new social pact. We need to work with the children and not only for the children. And the recognition of children as a social actors depends also from the adults' decision and from the channels and the condition we create. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Virginia. Thank you for committing to the time. And for everyone who is here, there is a button for questions and answers. Maybe if you want to raise a question or to comment, you can write here. And then after we finish the presentations of the 6 panelists, we go to the Q&A. And from Costa Rica, we move to Tunisia with architect Samia Galouzi, architect and teacher in architecture at University of Carthage, together with Ishraq Rawatbi, a student working on her dissertation. They will be presenting under the title From Exclusion to Inclusion, a hosting center for street children. Samia and Ishraq, please go ahead. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Samia, we can't hear you. Please open your mic. Ishraq, please open your mic.
Yes, Madame Samia is going to present first, and then I'm going to present.
Okay.
So as I said, today we will present you and we will talk mainly about street children in Tunisia. We will focus on 2 aspects: the social phenomenon of street children, current spatial solution to the phenomena in Tunisia. Sorry, but I have a technical problem.
Samia, please, again, your mic.
Yes. Is it good? Do
Yes.
you hear me? Yeah. Yes. Here in Tunisia, we have over more than 10,000 street children distributed over all the country, and 3,000 of them are in the capital, Tunis. Tunisia has a child protection code, laws that protect children's rights, signature and commitment in various international conventions dedicated to childhood, institutions and structures for childhood protection and support. But yet, and according to a recent analysis report, we have 215,700 children aged between 5 and 17 years who are working in Tunisia. 5.4% of them are aged between 5 and 12, and 12.8% of children are aged between 13 and 15, and what is more alarming, that 7.9% of them are doing hazardous work. It should be mentioned here that the Tunisian labor code forbidden to employ children under 16. Activities such as bagging or selling buckets of jasmine or flower, paper handkerchiefs, or even collecting plastic bottles are often practiced by street children. Here in Tunisia, we have an active civil society who is taking care about street children and offering them hosting and accommodations structures. But for the government, there is only 3 types of government institutions who are authorized to take care of street children. And here we will present you 3 examples of them. The first type of structure are centers for social guidance and orientation. Those centers aren't specifically dedicated to take care of street children. They take in charge several categories of underprivileged people and try to place street children in more permanent reception because they offer just stays limited in time. As example of those structures, we present you the Center for Guidance of Childhood Zahruni at the capital Tunis, which is located about 10 kilometers from downtown, and which do not have specific where children do not have specific spaces, and the project itself wasn't designed to accommodate the children. Children are hosting with other people. The second type are social protection centers for children. These are specifically dedicated to host children, and beneficiaries are children in difficulty of both sex, aged between 6 and 18, children, particularly girls who are born out of wedlock, who are born into broken families, and who are living in families where one of the parents is violent. And as example of those centers, we present you center at Zahruni, which is located just in front, the first one that we present before. And there, children have limited activities and do not enough learning opportunities are offering for them. These are some photos of that centers. The last one type of structure that we will present are integrated youth and children's center. They are more numerous and are spread over 17 governorates of the country. Beneficiaries of those centers are children who live in one of the difficult situations mentioned in Article 20 of the Child Protection Code. Children aged between 6 and 18 who are pursuing educational vocational training, who are in good physical and mental health, and who are able to live with a group of other children. These centers provide medical, psychological, and educational care for those children. And as example, we present youth and children center in Le Bardou, Tunis. There is no green area. Children feel there under pressure, and they do not have a specific area for them in the neighborhood. And these are some photos of that structure. As a conclusion, we can say that the number of public institutions in Tunisian public institutions dedicated to take care of street children is insufficient. They do not offer them opportunity to integrate into society or to take charge of their lives and be autonomous at the age of 18 when the law obliges them to quit their hosting institution. Tunisian strategy of care for street children must change both in its programs and as spaces it offers. It must ensure social inclusion of those children during and after their care. And the question is how to ensure social inclusion of street children and in which way architecture may participate to that. This is what Sharaq will debate of.
I'm going to share my screen, just a moment. And okay, so just a moment. Okay, I'm so sorry. I need to find the right one. Okay, so according to Madame Femia, the Tunisian institutions responsible for the integration and inclusion of these children have failed. Therefore, it was a must to know about the other strategies that worked around the world, and especially in the African countries. So here I cite two study cases that I found interesting. The first one is Made in the Street School in Kenya. So Made in the Street School is a non-profit organization founded by Charles and Arlene Custon in 1995. Their approach is based on three primary aspects. They provide accommodation, a learning center for children between the age of 13 to 15 years old, and a skills center for children between the age of 16 to 18 years old. Second, we have Beiti Association in Morocco. So Beiti is a non-governmental, non-profit organization founded in 1994 after the alarming numbers that reached 30,000 children in 2013. Also, their approach is based on three primary aspects: recovery from the street, educational follow-up if the child is still going to school or still willing to go to school. However, if the child is no longer interested in going to school, they offer and provide farming workshops. So these two study cases have succeeded in the reintegration and socio-professional inclusion of these children under the concept of social cohesion, which is the opposite of what the Tunisian institutions have done, which is excluding the child and basically regrouping all three children all together, putting them away in an isolated area with no actual program, no proper plan whatsoever to prepare them for the future. Therefore, here I am today proposing the concept of social cohesion as maybe it can be used as a solution, alternative solution, in order to narrow down the phenomena of the street children in Tunisia. So the term social cohesion means the presence of strong solidarity and social bonds in a group or an organization. It started with Emile Durkheim in 1893 in his book, The Division of Labor in Society. This concept ensures the proper functioning of a society. However, in order for us to know and comprehend a little bit more this concept, we have to know the difference between integration and inclusion. So integration is reinventing society to enable people who are discriminated against to come closer and become part of society. However, inclusion is willingness to adapt to each other, that is to change society so that it adapts to all instead of changing people so they adapt to it, which means that social cohesion is about finding a balance between individuals and reducing inequalities without denying the specific needs of each, which means that in order for us to reach the inclusion we are hoping for, we have to have a cohesive society. However, we are more interested in the spatial aspects of things and how we can reach a cohesive society with a building, with a space that we can actually live in. Here, I introduce the concept of spatial cohesion that started with Jean Seisel in his book, Inquiry by Design, where he says that if we want to achieve a high level of social cohesion, it is obvious that we need an architectural response. This idea has been propounded in the book, The Social Logic of the Space, where the writers narrow it down to four main ideas in order for us to get that spatial cohesion, therefore the social cohesion. So the first idea is define spaces with defined links, which implies the importance of creating inclusive spaces rich with perceptual information. Second, we have distance and proximity, which implies the importance of void volumes and mezzanis. The third is the importance of creating sociopetal spaces instead of sociofuge spaces, which favorize the interaction. And finally, flexibility of transition in between the different parts of the project. Speaking of social cohesion and integration, I had the chance to work with one of the few associations that succeeded in the inclusion of children. Gaia, which is an association that was founded in 2007 and has for a goal to defend the rights of handicapped children. Their approach is also based on three primary aspects: therapy, educational follow-up, and farming workshops. Here I cite two of the many success stories of the farm. We have Mohammed Amin, who is the first success story of the farm, and now he became the official photographer for Gaia. And second, Amin Isa, who has been trained in the agriculture sector, and he currently so this association has succeeded in one way or another in the socio-professional inclusion for these children. After talking to the board of Gaia and explaining my idea, I had the privilege to work with them. So mixing up their methodology and their strategy with the concept of social cohesion, we came up with this idea of mixing up the two children, the street children and the handicapped children, and under the roof of a cohesive environment in order to finally get the inclusion we are hoping for. So going a little bit into the specific, here we have the site, the specific site. We have Sidi Thabit, the main area. We have the farm and the site of intervention. So after a little bit of the site analysis and talking with the board again in order to comprehend a little bit, maybe better, the workshops they offer, so we can come up with a whole sum of a project, we came up with this program that is mainly divided on three primary units. We have the training and workshop unit, we have the entertainment unit, and accommodation. Here we have the first intentions of the project that led us to the main idea of it. So it all started with a basic volume. We started with a portion which is distributing the program into different units based on the functional structure of Gaia. Second, we have paritation, which is trying to keep an open perception towards the farm, which led into the creation of private gardens as well as a common outdoor area. And third, we have the unifying roof, which is a rooftop that the purpose of it is to unify all the different units of the project. And also it led to facilitating the horizontal and vertical transitions. And of course, the flexibility of transition. We try to keep it as flexible as we possibly can to go from one point to another inside of the project, which led to the creation of the main courtyard that starts from the entry of the project and goes all the way to the center of it. Here is the
Ishraq, sorry
Yes.
for interruption, but please try to wrap it. The time is almost up. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the implementation plan, the plan, like the project inside of the farm, exploded axonometric view with the different units, the training workshops, the entertainment area, accommodation, and the rooftop. Here are the plans as well, like the training workshops, entertainment area, accommodation, as well as the private gardens and the main courtyard. And finally, the sections, also a part of accommodation, the entertainment area, and the training. And this is the accommodation and the courtyard. And finally, some perspective in order to understand a little bit more. This is the entry, the courtyard, the entertainment / gathering area. We try to make it as homey as we possibly can. And finally, the accommodation, and this is a room for two of the children. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ishtiyaq. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And we are still in the same continent, and now with my colleague, Dr. Minna Talla Al-Husseini from Cairo University, Egypt, and she will be presenting the children and the planning in Cairo. Please
Thank you, Dr. Hiba. Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to showcase some of the outcomes of research agendas and group work of some of my colleagues in Cairo University, and to showcase some of the initiatives we are trying to focus on during the upcoming period of time regarding how to include children more. Actually, I'm really fortunate to be part of the institution and to work on bridging the gap between what's happening in planning on in real life and how architecture can help children to be more included in planning. And actually, planning is a very broad term. It refers to how children can be included as less fortunate children, for instance, disabled children or street children, or even more fortunate children who are well off. However, they are not really empowered regarding how to enjoy play and public space. There are also issues regarding refugees and how architecture can be introduced to children in education in early stages so that they can understand more about the built environment and how to enhance their opportunities in the future. First off, I would like to showcase the work of my colleague Noor Hamdi, who incorporated how children can be, autistic children can be included in mainstream schools, which is a very important aspect regarding how we can improve strategies in existing schools to work on the spatial sequencing, visual clues, provide more withdrawal areas for autistic children to be able to blend into the normal everyday life without being much intimidated, guidelines for lighting, acoustics, and safety. And she has already worked on providing solutions for existing mainstream schools in Cairo, and to work on providing affordable and instant applications to enhance the quality of the built environment for children. And I think this can be further investigated and generalized in different schools. Another aspect regarding the opportunities for play, it's very important actually to not only to provide a minimal aspects for children to enjoy their life. However, it's very important also to provide socially, physically, and cognitively aspects for children to be able to develop further their skills, and this can be highly also applied. However, when it has been investigated, especially after COVID-19, of whether children can participate in public spaces in different zones and sectors in Cairo, it has been actually observed that there are very wide spectrums of integration. For instance, in traffic safety dimensions and children, and how they can actually assess, or parents can assess the safety regarding to access and how to move unattended and how to go to school alone, and whether children of less fortunate zones actually have the capability to skip school, whether the visual space, the visual surveillance is available or not. Those strategies have been applied on middle income and low income and gated communities, and it has been observed that actually spaces are not really very adequate. And children usually resort or their parents actually prefer to support them for using more privatized spaces for play. And very little initiatives have been created or targeted providing spaces to really blend the child to enjoy the public space, which can be very easily self-initiatively also enhanced to enable children to use the space independently and provide them for more autonomy in using their neighborhoods. Actually, this will help a lot if we can plot where children can access how they can move around their neighborhood, where are the points of strength, and how to decrease the points of hazards. Actually, this can be used also in different areas, and the plotting of the problems and the weaknesses and the strength points and opportunities have been applied. Yet the major issue still relies in motivating the communities to work more on enhancing their private or semi-private nodes in order to enhance their actually participation in public space. One of the interesting examples we went through in the course of our research was the existing activities or the existing nodes of a child interaction, and we have selected one case study, which is the child park in Sayyida Zainab by the architect the Aga Khan. It was actually awarded Aga Khan award with our professor Abdelhaim Ibrahim. And what was interesting is that the park, originally designed for to target children, has been transformed from a public space to a private space, and having access to the park is not really functional or is monitored by the Ministry of Culture, and it has been limited because only children can be admitted into the park. Their parents have to stay outside. It's not working as a magnet anymore. Even the main theater space is more used for school trips or for very rigid for timings. It's not full powered space. Another aspect I would like to showcase also in the course of our compiled research work was how to understand the needs of street children and whether the permanent drop centers are functional. And actually what we have concluded is that the points of the rehabilitation centers where they are supposed to be given more opportunities are turning into some sort of a problem in themselves, and children actually resort to the streets again. So we have studied how the spaces can be more friendly and would enable the children to actually blend in among their colleagues in the centers, and there are other options to, for instance, provide drop-in centers or move mobile units around the areas which witness the phenomenon of street children, to try to solve the problem from the initial point. And regarding public space, again, we have documented some spaces. Unfortunately, the participatory sequence in those spaces have not been documented. However, the problem mainly in this case was regarding the sustainability of the solution. This was a place which have been funded and provided with play facilities for children, for refugees in Cairo, in the 6th of October district. And at the time of the documentation of the process, it was functional, and children have been actually using the space. However, the problem is that it did not really sustain itself, and it decayed to a great extent. Finally, I would like to showcase some of the process of engaging children in understanding the built environment in Egypt. I've been lucky to try to contact one of the schools, which is Ethos, in 6th of October city, and having this sense of allowing the children to understand what a public space is, trying to build their own city, and to understand during different key stages what is a built environment and what are the building materials, how we can envision or understand our perception of the home. Actually, it was a very successful model, which of course needs to be more organized and widespread through different schools and through a bigger umbrella. And the pending agenda for this is to organize more workshops and sessions for the children, and to engage them in understanding their built environment and actually the public space, to be able to maintain and avoid the problems of sustaining the outcomes of the research. And thank you. I hope I haven't exceeded my time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You were perfect on time. You still have like 3 minutes, but we will just move on to Greece, and with our friend Artemis Kirko and her presentation entitled Hospitalized Children's Rights and the Significance of Healing Environment. Artemis Kirko, she's an architect, postdoc researcher in Aristotle University in Thessaloniki in Greece. Please, Artemis, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Just a minute, I want to make it full screen for you. Okay, sorry. I'm an architect, as stated before, and for the time being, I'm teaching interior design at the International Hellenic University. Today, I will be presenting some highlights of the research I've been doing for the past 8 years, let's say, or so. Both my doctoral thesis and my postdoctoral research are in the area of the design of healthcare facilities for children. So, as you see, the title is Hospitalized Children's Rights and the Significance of the Healing Environment. And I will be starting by saying that the hospitalization process is inevitably a source of stress for each individual. Judging from personal experience and, of course, by literature review, the problematic points during a hospital stay can be identified due to the absence of the familiar setting, the insecurity of the future, the fear of unknown medical test or surgery that might take place, the pain that one might feel, the restriction of the social and everyday life, the fact that there is no control of the hospital environment, the lack of choices, and so on. So to this stressful experience, the architectural environment should not be another additional source of stress or should not add to the feeling of being out of control. My principal, let's say, research question when I began was what could be the contribution of the environment during this hospitalization process? And more specifically, how could this environment positively affect the hospitalized children who are a more vulnerable group of patients? And here, let me clarify that by the term environment, I include all of its interpretation, meaning natural, built, interior, exterior, the overall atmosphere of the space and its ambience. So the hospitalization process is a stressful experience for everybody, but especially for children, it's a defining experience. And this happens because children are still in a developmental stage of their life, both physically and mentally. And this has to do with the way that they perceive and they react to the built environment. Some major differences between adult patients and children, apart from the fact that they're still in a developmental stage, their scale and their sizes are different, their interests are totally different, and of course their needs, which are divided into two, let's say, big categories. The ones regarding their psychological balance and the ones regarding their activities, which according to Piaget, the activity of play is a rather important one while being hospitalized, because children through play can understand and learn the world around them. Moving on to the definition of the child, according to the UN, is every human being up to 18 years of age. And in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989, the hospitalized children's rights were established by the European Association for Children in Hospital. Here I've included only some of the goals which are linked to the architecture and the design of the space and can raise, let's say, design questions. So some of them are the right of children to have their parents with them at all times in the hospital, their right for painless medical treatment, the right to receive information that they can actually understand or have their own say in their care plan, to have opportunities for play and education while being in the children's ward, to be in contact with their peers, and of course, a right for a healing environment. But what is a healing environment actually? It is the built environment that can actually support and promote the healing process. And this is mainly achieved by eliminating stress and sending the negative feelings away at that time. In the rest of the presentation, I will be trying to explain some of the basic characteristics of the healing environment for children through some recently built examples that I visited while doing my research. And I will be starting by the fact that a healing environment should always offer contact or unification to the exterior environment of the building, even with large opening for interesting views, or maybe small parks, small garden, sensory gardens sometimes. All these are details that could actually uplift the psychology of the hospitalized child, or depending on the location of the hospital, ideas such as rooftop gardens or openings to direct natural views could always uplift their psychology and create a more positive atmosphere in the space. Sometimes the integration of artificial elements, let's say through the materials that can imitate natural patterns, could also be a positive plus in the healing environment at its creation, or sometimes technology can also help. I've included here in the bottom row 2 examples, where in the one we can see on the left an interaction, let's say surface, which is like an aquarium, and children can go over there and touch it and see the fish moving around. And on the right hand, it is a waiting area in Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, which is actually an art installation where children, while waiting to get examined, can wait in this curved red bench and listen to natural sounds, birds singing, and so on. Moving on, the healing environment should also include elements that could be used as positive distractions. Sometimes, in many cases, I noticed that the lighting, especially small details in public spaces, could actually work as positive distractions, and in order to send the negative feelings of the children away and create a more friendly atmosphere. Here, I would have to, let me say, if someone asked me, could you give a definition for atmosphere? Actually, it's rather hard to give a literal definition for atmosphere, because it also includes the parameter of time, which is something that passes and changes. But if I was to give a definition in terms of design, through my literature review, I would say that the way the lighting of the space is actually a very powerful design parameter in the creation of a friendly atmosphere. And in public spaces, apart from the fact that lighting can actually enhance the functionality of the space and the user's circulation and the wayfinding, it adds a lot to the overall atmosphere, especially for children, in playful ways that the public spaces are lightened and so on. Also, in some spaces, such as corridors, let's say, where children sometimes moved around laying in their back in beds with wheels, having interesting lights that could be also used as a positive distraction could be an uplifting reason in their psychology. Along with lighting, the matter of color is a design parameter that could actually help in the creation of the healing environment, but it should be used, let's say, in a sensible way. According to literature, soft changes of tones, along with materials and lighting, can give harmonious results that can inspire calmness and give positive impression to the children. The color should be used, but not excessively. Here I have some examples from Switzerland, UK, and Italy. And here I've included some Greek examples. I'm not here to judge whether this is a good example or a bad example, but it's a first step that shows that new renovations take in consideration the hospitalized children, and I will keep that as a message for the future designs, that someone cares for the hospitalized children. Also, a healing environment should stimulate the children's interests and show concern for the activities that they can perform while being hospitalized. Here you can see examples from Children's Hospital in Holland and in Italy, where play areas such as indoor soccer fields or small libraries or even cinemas, this one is actually in Italy, can make the whole hospitalization experience even more, let's say, easier for them. Also, art in proper scale and of course proper themes for children is a parameter that can also stimulate their interests and add to the whole healing environment. There are excellent art programs for patients in London and in Italy. For the time being in Greece, this is run only by volunteers. And of course, when designing spaces for children, especially the public spaces, the architect should always have in mind that a crucial parameter is the the relationship between the parent and the child, or the carer and the child, while being in those spaces, and taken in consideration both of those two different groups, both of their needs, let's say. And of course, this also is transferred to the more private spaces, the patient's room, where here you can notice that these are examples from London, Italy, Switzerland, and Greece, with pull-out beds or comfortable sofas with interesting views to the exterior. Children and their carers can be together at all times while being hospitalized. There is, let's say, a trend that shows an interest in the creation of one bed, single bed rooms. This, of course, is something that can control the diseases easier, but maybe the child in this way feels more loneliness. So there's a question mark over there. So when designing healthcare spaces for children, the healing environment is a parameter that should be taken care very seriously. And architects in the future should actually focus a lot on that area. For the time being, in Greece, small steps are made, but being here and even talking about it, I believe it's a happy it's a happy message for future projects, healthcare projects for children that will come. I hope I was in my time limit. Thank you very much for your attention. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Artemis, for finishing before your time and for the lovely presentation. We have some questions and comments for you. We will discuss them later after the presentations. Now we will move to Turkey, particularly with Selcin Kuznak. She's an architect and she's an associate professor at Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University in Turkey, and she will be presenting her under the title Children's Engagement with the World Heritage Site in Istanbul. Selcin, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers of this webinar for involving me in this event on this special day when we should remember and discuss how we can help build a more child-friendly and inclusive built environment for our children using architecture. I'm honored to be part of this diverse debate. Today, I'm going to talk about our project which we conducted in 2016 in Istanbul's historic district Zerek, which is an ancient multi-layered settlement dating back to Byzantine era. I'm from the field of architectural conservation. Thus, I'd like to start my presentation with some current discussions on how we can achieve a more inclusive way of safeguarding our city's architectural heritage and how we can raise cultural heritage awareness among children. Then in my presentation, I will continue with introducing Zerek, a historic district from Istanbul, Turkey, and our project we conducted there with children. Sorry. Do you see this? Maybe I can remove it, but okay. In today's understanding, cultural heritage, which covers past architectures of cultural significance, is no longer a collection of old things which we keep in closed cabinets. It's rather the sum of thoughts, feelings, and activities we develop together for places which have a meaning to us. Is cultural heritage a resource which we can all share? Or is it more than a product, as Laura Jane Smith says, something we recreate with our feelings or a process which repeats in a cycle? Inspired by these new discussions, we asked ourselves in 2016, what can we do? How can we include young generations to protect their own environment? We knew that if they valued their environment, they would be willing to be part of it and tend to protect it more. So in 2016, we, a group of architects specialized more in conservation, history of architecture and archaeology, we decided to conduct a project at a neglected district in Istanbul. Our project was entitled as Children as Custodians of World Heritage Site Zerek. Now I'd like to present our project to you and start by introducing the ancient Zerek district. First, I'd like to show you a general map of Turkey. Here you can see some of the assets already inscribed in UNESCO's World Heritage List. Some are architectural assets, some are natural assets. And Istanbul is here, the capital of the Ottoman Empire for ages. And here is Istanbul. You can see the 4 historic areas of Istanbul here, inscribed in the World Heritage List as one entry, the historic areas of Istanbul. And the small area here with the green border is Zerek district, where we conducted our project. Zerek is a historical neighborhood with a very rich architectural history. It is one of the 4 areas of Istanbul, which were designated as World Heritage by UNESCO in 1985. The most important heritage part of Zerek are the Byzantine remnants, architectural remnants, such as here you can see Zerek Mosque or the former Church of Pantokrator. And the timber houses, this is another Byzantine church, which was also converted to a mosque today. And the other important asset in the neighborhood were the timber houses dating to the end of 19th century. They are considered as exceptional evidence of late Ottoman urban pattern. Here you can see some more. And Zerek was also one of the first urban sites in Turkey, designated as urban site, and its conservation plan was approved in early times in 1979. Today, however, it's a dilapidated area with residents from low-income groups. However, we can say that there's a strong sense of neighborhood and a family life.
I interrupt, please. Can you just keep a little more distance between the mic and your mouth, because it's too close, so your voice is not that clear. Thank you.
Okay. So can you see this bar? Should I remove it? I don't know. Okay. Zerek is today a dilapidated area with residents from more low-income groups. That's one of the reasons why we chose Zerek to be with the children of Zerek, the children who live there. However, we also sensed a family life atmosphere there. And streets in Zerek still continue to be the most attractive place for spontaneous, informal child play. Children meet, learn about each other and their adult neighbors, and develop a sense of community involvement. They receive information from the street environment, which is actually essential in their intellectual development too. And our project aimed to enable children learn about their urban history. Our project takes advantage of Zerek's existence as a neighborhood where people use the urban space as a living area. The fundamental aim was to raise awareness among children who are either residents of Zerek or are going to school there. So we didn't include any children from other neighborhoods. We intentionally wanted that the children in Zerek participated in our project. We also aimed to strengthen the sense of belonging towards the neighborhood in the long run, also among the parents of these children. So before we start, we introduced our project to children by visiting them at their school and invited them to our project. And children aged between 8 and 10 who go to the primary school, they attended our project. So as our main activity, we wanted to introduce, experience Zerek's architectural heritage with children outside on the streets. We planned 3 different walking routes with children. We tried to draw their attention to the valuable yet neglected historic buildings and give basic information on how we can protect ancient buildings, what causes their decay. And for example, fire is an important conservation issue for the timber buildings, timber heritage in Zerek. So there has been 2 main objectives of the outdoor activities realized in Zerek. One was to help children get to know about their own environment and to observe this rich environment with another point of view. In order to let children develop this new point of view for their neighborhood, we gave them cameras and asked them to take pictures of the things they found interesting during the walking routes. Children grouped in 2 or 3 took pictures of different things like architectural details or a faraway street view, or sometimes just a stray dog that they found pretty. We share some basic information on the art of photography while examining their photos in the classroom environment. It was surprising to see how children caught easily sight of the neighborhood atmosphere. And in the classroom, we shared with children materials which can be related with historic environment to help them get acquainted with new resources. There were old photographs, old photos, traces of buildings, building remnants, simple building conservation lessons also we tried to give them. And the other part of our project were planned indoors at their primary school, which is itself also a 20th century early Republican building. It was also a listed building, an architectural heritage. So these are some of the activities we did in the classroom environment. It was a whole day, 1 day dedicated to indoor activities to support what they learned outside. And these are some examples from our indoor activities. There was, for example, costume drama, which you can see pictures here. In costume drama, we tried to introduce some of these, the people who lived in Zerek in the past by making children dress up like these characters, such as the Byzantine emperor who patroned the Byzantine church, Pantocrator church, or our famous, well-known architect Sinan, who also designed a Turkish bath at Zerek. These are also other activities in the classroom environment. One of the main activities of Ottoman arts and crafts is the production of glazed tiles. This art is also inscribed in UNESCO's Intangible Heritage List. For example, in this activity, the children were given some pieces of paper with printed out as a panel, the pieces of a panel of a glazed tile, and like a puzzle, each child tried to find the complete pattern of the glazed tile. Basic information was always introduced while the children worked. And down you can see the mosaic workshop. We had also another, in my opinion, interesting workshop, which was entitled as the Inscription Design. Historic inscriptions of ancient buildings give information on the people who patroned them and their construction time. But because they are either in Ottoman language or in Arabic, the children cannot read them now, and they feel a distant. They feel distant from these assets. They are found in different styles, colors, and forms, and also in Zerek. You can come across them quite often on the streets. During our walking tours, different inscriptions which we found in Zerek were pointed out to the children. Although they come across them, they don't get to know what they tell and that they are from our past. In the classroom environment, children then were asked to design their own inscriptions using the same forms, but inside them, they were asked to write a new phrase or some simple sentences to reflect their feelings about their homes or schools. This time, this activity aimed to help children associate themselves with history as well. And for the evaluation methodology, we asked questions, you can see here, some simple questions to children at the beginning and then when the activities were over, and try to understand what they have learned or if we could raise some awareness among them.
Seljan, sorry for interruption, but let's try to finish in like 2 minutes because of the
I'm
time.
finishing. Thank you. So last 2 slides. When our project ended, we were invited to conduct a further pilot project at another primary school in Zerek, and we exhibited also the children's works in 2 different exhibitions to the people who live in Zerek, to the parents and the teachers and who wanted to see them. And as a conclusion, I'd like to take a phrase from historian and geographer David Lowenthal. He says that what we inherit is integral to our being. Without memory and tradition, we could neither function nor plan ahead. He then continues telling that heritage bonds us with icons of past, with earlier selves, and promised successors are the children. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Seljan, for such this overview of your indoor and outdoor activities. And you have contributed a lot to this cross-culturation in this group. And hopefully we hear and attend and listen more of your projects. And now with my colleague, Susan De Laval, the co-director of the UIA Work Program Architecture and Children. Susan is an architect and researcher from Stockholm, Sweden, and she will be presenting about children's participation in the planning process. Please go ahead, Susan.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy about this webinar and interesting lectures, and I'm sharing the screen now. Let's see, there is my presentation. And I will this. So I'm going to tell you about a project I did some 2 years ago, children's participation in the planning process, an example from Sweden. environmental impact assessment, EIA, is implemented in Swedish planning since some years, and in recent year the consequences for life, movements and possibilities for this has been in focus in Sweden with Swedish planners. For we have decided to work with children's environmental impact assessment. And as we have heard very good lectures here about the UN Convention of the Right of the Child, this became law in Sweden in 2020. So we are changing a lot of other using of the laws so we can really take care of the children's rights. Still, it was ratified in 1990, so we should really have done it before, I think, but now we are working with it. And we have some of the articles that are extremely important here. It's Article 2 about non-discrimination, the Article 3 about the best interest of the child, Article 6 about life, survival and development, and Article 12 about the respect of the views of the child, and Article 31 about leisure, play and culture. So we have a lot to live up to, and we think that the children should have the opportunity to participate in the planning process. So for that reason, Stockholm Planning Office started a new planning process called Integrated Environmental Impact Assessment for Children. And they made a book explaining the process. And some projects in Stockholm, they have used this process. And here is a picture of the process. We start with in the formal planning process, we start with an early dialogue with children. We go out and have focus groups or something like that. And then we have the proposal process where a children's consultant, that was my role in the project I will present to you, who the consultant make assessment underway and present the early dialogue to the planners. And then we have the assessment of the proposal, and then in the end we have the feedback to all who have participated. So I'm telling you about a project in Vårberg, a suburban area south of Stockholm. And I did some extra things in this early dialogue. I did walkthrough evaluation with 100 school children, grade 2 and 5 in May 2018. And I made the assessment underway. And then I did 1 year later, when the proposal was existing, I did a children's assessment with 60 school children, grade 6, in April 2019. And the grade 6 children were the same that were the grade 5 in 2018. So those children really learned a lot about what the planning process is. And the feedback is available in the website of Stockholm city. And we had the early dialogue. It was 40 school children, grade 2. They were 8 years old, and we had 60 school children in grade 5. They were 11 years old. And we invited them to walk through evaluation in the neighborhood in 2018. And the walk, the school is in the number 1, the football area, and then the schoolyard, number 2. Number 3 is outside the schoolyard, a park where they used to play a lot. And the 4th is underway passage. And the 5th is the center where the tube is situated, a station. And the 6th is a park that was refurbished. And here we are standing on the first stop with the 5, they were in the 5th grade. and they were writing what is good in this place, what is bad in this place, and suggestions to make it better. And the woman is the teacher. So they were discussing with each other, and they were writing down what was good, what was bad, and suggestions for making it better. Here is in the schoolyard. They worked writing, and then they also did some serious climbing, of course. They don't stand still as grown-ups, and some of them were sitting on the side and writing and thinking and discussing what do we think about this. And here is the park, the nearby park, which is going to be full of new houses, so this will disappear, and the children like this park very much, even though it doesn't look very nice. The building to the right is a garage, which makes a lot of noise, and it's not very nice, but still the children loved the swings. And when they had done the writing, they did the swinging in the swings, and I mean, they like it extremely much, this park. And here is the passageway under the road, and this was going to be taken away because of new houses built, and they were making one level only, and they were going to make a park out of this. And here they are writing and discussing. And here you can see the result, where they write what is good, and they write something about what is good on here in the passageway. And they write what is good. The lamp is not in function, and it's dark. And the suggestions, what you could do, you could perhaps paint some colors or something. So they really had opinions on all the places. And my documentation of a walkthrough evaluation looks like this: a presentation of the project, what did we do and where did we walk, and a short summary of results on page 2, and then place after place documented what is good, what is bad, and the suggestions. And I always put pictures in the documentation, so you get the feeling of that something really happened. And here is once again the walk, and the documentation of the walkthrough is available here on the website from Stockholm. And you can see the white squares here are the existing houses, and the light beige brown is the new, and there is a park in the middle, which is where the passageway was. And the planning process worked on, and 1 year later, I had 60 school children, 3 classes were participating in the plan process. And they, 1 hour presentation for each school class. And then the day after, and the 2 days after, I met the classes, and they had the opportunity to write their opinions about the plan. And they had all official plan material at hand when they could write their opinions. And here is from the presentation of the plan. The woman in front is the formal planner who explains the plan and the work to make the plan, and a lot of investigations made by different work groups. I mean, about electricity, and about the water, and about infrastructure, and all kind of things, so they could really understand how great work is done with the plan. And they had the opportunity to ask questions. And they also showed the physical model, and they liked that very much. And the woman in the middle is one of the planners explaining and answering questions, and the children could find where is my house, where do I live, and they could imagine how the area would be changing. And of course, the mobile cameras went up and they all took pictures because they thought this was very interesting. And here is where they were writing, the day after, where they were writing their opinions and having all the plan materials at hand. And so it was a lot of perspectives and plans and other material. And here is one, a group of, no, this is only one girl who writes about what she thinks. She did not like having a lot of houses where her playground is now. So she was very negative. And the feedback of all this plan material is available on the website from Stockholm City. And here is the red zones. You can see the new houses are the white ones, and where the park was, there are a lot of houses, and you can see the park in the middle that is new, and the park in the left that is a refurbished park to compensate. Both those parks is to compensate for the garage park that children loves now. And here is again the full picture of the dialogue with my walkthroughs and the children's assessment. And then that was in April 2019. And then the planners took over and they reviewed with a new plan in spring 2020. And then they determined the plan in the end of 2020. So now they are soon going to start the building of the new houses in this area. And what did the school children think about the plan? Oh, sorry. They understood, all the school children understood that there will be a change. And 52% thought that the area will be too crowded with new buildings. And 27% did not like the design of the new buildings. 37% were positive about the plan and gave positive suggestions. 33% wanted the garage park to be kept as a playground. 42% liked the new parks and playgrounds and gave creative suggestions for the parks. Swings, climbing frame and cableway and so on. And the suggestions for the area was cafe, fast food restaurant, swimming pool, sports center. And some of the pupils thought that it would take too long time to be waiting for the plan to be realized. And what was the result of the children's environmental impact assessment? Well, the children had the same conditions as the grown-ups. When the planner explained the plan, she also explained the planning process and how the children's comments would be treated. The early dialogue was presented to all planners during the planning process. So the early dialogue with the walkthrough was really, I really explained what the children thought, so the planners knew that when they were starting. And my role as a children's consultant was that I participated in several planning meetings and I participated in the planning discussion, so I could continuously defend the children's right, and I thought that was very good. I liked that. And the children's perspective was taken into account during the design process. And the school children learned about society and about the planning process. And the school children met professionals and heard about other planning professions, so they could have ideas for their future life and so on. And you can reach also the parents via the school children. The school children had a small brochure to take home that explained what we have been doing and about the plan. And the responsive planner stated after the project was finished, to her big surprise, that the comments on the plan from the children were very much the same as the grown-ups. And the planners learned about how to deal with children in this process. Still, I had also a comment from the planner that, well, this was very good, but you know, we cannot do this in many projects. So it was both good and bad, I think. But still, I think the children really had this chance to say what they wanted. So now I finished on the minute, I think. So are you there?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
You exceeded your time with a minute or a minute and a half, but
Oh, I did.
much, yeah. And typically when things are hands-on, they verify and solidify the research. And this brings us to the end of our panelist presentations. They were all extremely wonderful and extremely beneficial to our work program and to whoever is interested in working with children. We had a comment to Artemis from Julia. She was suggesting, from Julia Morlaki to Artemis Kirku, she was suggesting that maybe you can find more examples, a good example in the Children's Hospital in Vancouver, in Canada. And also you have another comment from Rodrigo Mendelin. He is introducing you to a research or a presentation or a student that has done some research about the presence of nature in the healing process of the child. Norwina Muhammad Nawawi, she was asking you if those cases are already built or done in acute pediatric facilities, yes or no, before we move to other comments and questions from other people.
Okay, first of all, I have to explain something that I probably didn't. There were some limitations for the sake of my doctoral research to move on. So I was only limited to European examples. I am an admirer as an architect. I admire the healthcare architecture in Canada, and I will be definitely looking at the suggested example. These also, I had the limit to, first of all, to answer, yes, they are all acute pediatric hospitals. There are examples in Europe, and I had to decide to take out, let's say, the special cases of oncological hospitals or cancer hospitals, because they're totally different. So it was mainly research on general pediatric hospitals or children's wards in general hospitals. And on my postdoctoral research, I focused on the psychiatric children's healthcare design, which is again a total different area. Let's say they have some similarities, but they also have big differences. I hope I answered to all the points.
Yeah, but there is one more question from Carolina Pizarro from Costa Rica, our friend. She's it's in the chat. She's thanking you, and she has a question. When these spaces or internal areas are designed in hospital, do you consult with the children about what they want? Do the children provide you with the design parameters? Because she has worked, or in Costa Rica, they have worked with similar things. And in order to humanize things more, so they dependent on some inquiries with children with cancer, and they had answers from them that were implemented in design. So please respond to Carolina Pizarro.
Well, in some cases, first of all, let me say that hospitals are some of the most complicated buildings to design because you have many different, let's say, users who have different needs. You have the doctors, you have the carers, you have the children, you have the patients, you have the visitors, you have many, many different, let's say, needs for each target group. So there are some cases, like in England, that they actually took advice from the children, and let's say they also took in consideration their suggestions and so on in the design process. In Greece, we're not there yet. So I don't know, hopefully as in future, let's say, studies and so on for healthcare architecture, maybe this is a parameter that will be taken seriously into account. But of course, doctors and other expertise over there have a lot to add in this process. Okay.
Thank you
very much.
And now it's two comments, a question and a comment for Susan from Julia Morlaki. The first is that she was asking you if the environmental impact book translated in English, because of course we would all over the world benefit from it, because it's a very good example of including children in the process. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't think so, but I will ask, of course, and I will tell about it in our Facebook stream. I think I can inform you. But I can tell you that I made a paper for UIA, for the Congress, to explain this project. So there is a paper in English where I write more or less exactly what I told you today, but you learn a lot more than I had on this 15 minutes. So those who want to read that paper, you can send me an email and I will send you a PDF of that paper, so you can read about exactly how I did. So that is already available in English. And then I see that Julia also said that environmental impact assessment is used in a very, very, very formal way in Canada for federal government level. But we do that also in Sweden, but we have this environmental impact assessment. We do that on small plans also. And I think the impact assessment for children is extremely important, and I think we should work for, I mean, the children are stakeholders, even though they are not 18 years old, they are stakeholders because they live there. So I think we should change the use of the word and call it environmental impact assessment, and this integrated, that the children are integrated.
Thank you, Susan. Artemis, you have got more suggestions from Rodrigo Mendlin Loeb with more links that can be useful to you and for all of us and for everybody else.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Those were the comments written either in the chat or questions in the questions and the Q&A button. So if there any one of the attendees would like to ask another question, comment, there is one more question here, and it's also from Julia, but no, this time she's happy and she's thanking you, Susan. Yeah. So we still have a minute or two. If anyone wants to ask a question or to add a comment, please go ahead. You can either raise your hand or post it on the chat or in the Q&A.
Before anyone says something, I'd really like to thank everyone for this wonderful opportunity and that you gave. It's like a bouquet of flowers to have all those pictures from different parts of the world and how we treat the children. And we, as an important thing for our work program is that we help each other. We hear about what they do in one country, and we can hear, oh, we could introduce that in our country. So I think that the exchange of experience is the big thing in this work program.
Yeah, and we are happy and honored to have Virginia Murilu with us in contributing to the concept of participation and about the obstacles and about the role of the children and the parents and to move through better communication and better participatory methods for children. And we also had from Samia and Ishraq some very good initiatives and a project for the street children engagement and inclusiveness in the society. And from Minna Talla Al-Husseini, we had a very wonderful overview about the research done in the different underlying categories and associated with children, architecture and children. And then we had from Artemis this beautiful overview about incorporating nature in different manners in order to produce or promote for a better healing environment for hospitalized children. And then from Siljan, we had a hands-on different projects for raising the cultural heritage awareness for children with true indoor and outdoor activities. And from my friend and colleague, Susan, we saw an actual engagement of children, and throughout the years I have witnessed Susan explaining and reviewing other case studies, different case studies that give us lessons on how to engage children and how to benefit from what they think as stakeholders in successful planning and implementation projects. It's already past the hour, 2 minutes past the hour of our webinar today. So I would like to thank every one of the panelists and of the attendees for this wonderful webinar. The recording will be available soon. Once we get it from the UIA, it will be available on the UIA website, our Facebook page, and everywhere else. And we would like also to ask you to join our official website through the UIA website and official website and Facebook page, and share more information, more experiences, share one another's work so that our word becomes global and every day more than the previous day. Thank you, everyone, and see you very soon, hopefully in a more successful webinar from the UIA Architecture and Children work program. Thank you. And
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.